Okay, so we just read an article about YouTube cracking down on these election conspiracy theory videos. Basically, if you're making new videos that are saying things like, oh, Biden, cheated, or Trump was cheated by having the election stolen, or any other nonsense like that that's completely unfounded, those videos are going to get removed and you potentially could get a strike. Styx is very mad about this, I would imagine, because like 80% of his videos in the past month have been about that. So this will be interesting to watch. MMO Addicted with 20-bit. Speaking of another tale from glorious Poland, the government-owned oil company is buying out all independent news outlets they can, as many left-leaning as they can, under the pretext of Polonizing them and turning them into a propaganda tube. They basically own 98% of local news portals or newspapers, and a lot of regional ones, with only some national-level publications holding out. Yikes, that sounds like a nightmare. Is Styx gonna use magic? Yeah, he dressed up. He's not wearing the bathrobe. Good for him.
Alright everyone, it's time for arguably the most important video that I've ever actually made. If you're watching this on YouTube, there will be a pinned comment. There will be links in the description as well. I'm going to limit it at the moment just to the important ones, which are the other sites that I make videos on. Dailymotion, Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute. And the reason for that is pretty clear. As you've seen, if you follow Jack Posobiec and a few others, this came across literally this afternoon. I'm going to read part of this verbatim because it's the most disrespectful, insane thing that YouTube has ever done.
YouTube's done some pretty crazy shit. I don't know about that one. MMO Addicted with 20 bits. When was the last time I typed something including the word Poland and it wasn't a nightmare? Fair enough.
And YouTube's gone through 3 iterations of Adpocalypse at this point, so take that to the bank that it's actually meaningful. I'm going to go through this though. This is a post.
I wish I could have hair as healthy and beautiful as Styx. Like, can I take that from him? Is that something that the universe will allow me to have?
Archived, of course, so that you don't have to, give him a click or whatever. Supporting the 2020 U.S. election by the YouTube team. This is on their official blog. Updates to our work supporting the integrity of the 2020 U.S. election. Let me read some of this. Over the past weeks and months, we've seen people coming to YouTube to learn more about where you and how to vote, or learning more about a candidate or an issue. We've seen news organizations grow their audience, the MSM in other words. And we've seen people turn to YouTube for the latest election results or...
I don't even know if it is necessarily like like my YouTube account, and I swear, I'm not making this up. I could show you my analytics, although I think I'm not supposed to for YouTube TOS, so I won't do it. But you could like look at my Social Blade and see this. Like over the last month of election stuff, who I guess you could argue is sort of independent, I would say independent news commentary, similar to a lot of other people on Twitch, or independent, whatever, political commentary. My channel on YouTube doubled in the last month. It went from like 3,000 to 7,000, which isn't huge, but nonetheless, interest in election stuff has been high. So even for like independent news sources, independent news commentary, independent political commentary, like there's been a little bit of a nice bump, right? So the idea that it's all mainstream media sources that are getting that bump, that's completely untrue, at least in my experience. Tucker White 94 with 20 bits. That's an interesting catch-22. Government-controlled media tends to simp for those in power, while corporate-controlled media simps for the interest of the unfettered capitalism. So what's worse, the Washington Post that's controlled by Jeff Bezos or PBS? Yeah, I think that's why independent media is a pretty good thing to have. Like, I'm not even just, of course I'm going to say that because I talk about political commentary all the time, but I do think it's a good thing, right? The idea that we can have individual people providing, I don't know, different information, but that's more political commentary, not necessarily news. News is complicated. It's hard to do news in a way that is both accurate and feels unbiased, right? Because everyone inherently has some sort of bias in the way you're going to choose to cover news stories. It's going to be reflective of that bias. Even, like the AP is one of the least biased news sources ever. And even so, they still have to choose how they're writing their copy, so it's tough. Harry K5 says, when was the last time modern Poland isn't a nightmare? I would say the workers' protest of '89. Not familiar. Sorry.
Simply to follow an historic event with the highest voting turnout in over a century in the U.S. Our main goal, going into the election season, was to make sure we're connecting people with authoritative information. So CNN and Fox, basically, you know, these groups that call one another.
Fox is a right-wing news source. You just literally cited a liberal news source and a conservative news source. You're already talking about two different sides of the spectrum. By the way, is this video loud enough that y'all can hear it? Is this okay?
Their propaganda every fucking goddamn day until independent commentators climb aboard. Then all of a sudden they're on the same side, so fucking keep that in mind. While also limiting the reach of misinformation and removing harmful content. Yeah, that means shadow banning people like me.
Styx, you're probably shadow banned, but the reason that you're shadow banned is because you're a fascist and like advocate for borderline ethno-nationalist policies. We've watched those videos before from your occultism series on, I think, Tinfoil Tuesday. That's why you're shadow banned, not because you're conservative, because you're not really conservative. You're fashy. People don't like fascists, as it turns out.
Because we're wrong think. See, we don't do the newspeak thing anymore, so YouTube hates YouTubers and wants corporations to spread their information, that multi-billionaires like them. The work here is ongoing, and we wanted to provide an update, removing content that violates our policies. Our community guidelines prohibit spam, scams, or other manipulated media, coordinated influence operations, and any content that seeks to incite violence. None of which 99.9% of content creators do. Just
okay, I think this is a little dishonest in the sense that I understand what you're saying. A lot of the content, for instance, Tim Pool or Styx content that's relating to the election and claiming that they believe there's election fraud, again, none of that is evidenced at this point, as is seen by all of the cases being thrown out of court. They're not directly necessarily on videos like this calling for violence, which they shouldn't, because if they did, they'd rightfully have their channels removed. However, it is a pipeline to lead people to believe that that is the last resort. If you peek your head in on Parler, which I'm not going to do on stream, but you can do this yourself, and you can go look. There are also subreddits like Parler Watch that take a look at those places. There are tons of places and people who are being radicalized by the type of content that Dave Rubin and Styx and people like that are posting, or One America News when they're posting things like, oh, there's widespread election fraud, the election's being stolen. They're basically, without evidence, riling up a base and trying to get them locked in gear for some sort of sedition, right? Like, you can't do that. You can't do that. It's the same reason I think you probably couldn't make like a, I don't know, like a Holocaust denialism documentary on YouTube. Like, there's this thing. It is the free marketplace of ideas, and there are some ideas that we've all just said, nope, fuck that. Fascism is one of them. And trying to undermine a democratic election because you're mad that you lost, that's another one. That's how it works.
So we're, aware of this. Since September, we've terminated over 8,000 channels and thousands.
Colossus TV, defeating the web of lies, the socialist spin, using the foolproof practice of wrong speak.
Of harmful and misleading elections-related videos for violating our existing policies. Over 70.
Yeah, and the plandemic video, stuff like that. Misinformation can get removed by YouTube, as it should, I think, at least under the rules we have currently. Tucker White 94 where 20 bits whispers, Styx, the camera's in front of you, why are you looking off to the side? It's very distracting.
7%.
He's reading from a monitor or something.
Of the
which I understand. Not, you can't, I understand.
These removed videos were taken down before they.
I wonder how much a teleprompter is. Cheap teleprompter. How to make your own iPad teleprompter for $20. Oh, nice. What's this? Oh. I should get a teleprompter. I have absolutely no reason for one. I don't read things that often, and when I do, it's on the screen right here.
They had 100 views. Sounds bot related, but we'll get past it. We also work to make sure that the line between what is removed and what is allowed is drawn in the right place. Well, no, you're not. YouTube used to be like bum fights and Tourette's guy. Now it's, I don't know, Barney and Friends or something. Our policies prohibit misleading viewers about where and how to vote. We also disallow content alleging widespread fraud or errors change the outcome of a historical U.S. presidential election. Now, I'm going to stop you right there for a second and have a mini rant. What about the Russian elections, or the UK elections, or the next French elections?
That's not what they're talking about, Styx. They're talking about the U.S. elections. So I don't even know why you're bringing this up. It's a slippery slope argument. But that's not what we're doing. Styx, the United States election that we just had is not the Russian election. It's not whatever other election. We're talking about this election. And there's a concerted effort by you and people like you to try and delegitimize the results of an election that we have no evidence was anything but legitimate. That's the problem. There's nothing wrong with pointing out actual, like, election irregularities when they come up. Even if they came up in this election in one or two places. But that's not what you're doing. You're trying to say that the entire election is fake. And that's dangerous and seditious. YouTube doesn't want to be... How do I put this? YouTube doesn't want to be liable for shit like that. And under Section 230, if I forget specifically what law, yeah, like, places like YouTube and Facebook aren't necessarily liable for stuff like that, but it doesn't mean they haven't been sued for it in the past. For instance, look at the Sandy Hook families that ended up suing not only Alex Jones for his baseless claims that they were like crisis actors and that Sandy Hook didn't actually happen, but they also sued YouTube. So people like you become a liability for YouTube as a platform, and they don't want that to be the case. They don't want all these news stories making them look bad about, like, wow, people are being radicalized on YouTube by all these right-wing fanatics who think that the election was stolen with no evidence. They don't want that. They're a private entity, and until such a time as we change laws to make it in some way that, I don't know, they're more considered public platforms, which isn't the case right now, then it's within their rights to do these things. Harry K5 with 20 bets. I would love it if the Biden campaign sues the Trump lawyers for libel. They don't have the backbone for it, sadly. Yeah, I was gonna say they can't sue for stuff that's alleged in legal documents, but they've been saying stuff outside of legal documents, so I could see it, but I don't think they will. They don't have... Biden is still on the whole, like, oh, we need to reach across the aisle bullshit train. The thing that, you know, apparently Democrats haven't learned from the past 20 years doesn't work. He's still trying to do that, so I doubt he'll actually sue them or anything like that.
Or any other elections in the world. Can I question the next Rwandan elections? Is that going to be possible? What if it's historic? What if there's a woman on the ticket or something? I guess this is only for one specific election, and let me tell you something.
I would imagine it would be lying about any election, which is what you've been doing. Fun enough. MMO addicted with 20 bets anyways. Playing D&D, so going out of chat. Have fun, folks. I'll keep you all in the background. Alright, enjoy your D&D.
And I'm not alleging any fraud here, because it's not allowed anymore. Can I ask something? When...
Chest burster in a can. Yeah, we used to be edgy fucks. We were shitty. I know.
Multi-billionaires are trying to tell you what political things you can and cannot talk about. Don't you think that might be problematic? Because I've got a pitch here. I think that when multi-billionaires working with multi-billion-dollar corporations, for-profit multinationals, are trying to limit what you can say, that's the time to say it. Because they're worried for a reason, presumably. And it's probably not for benevolent reasons.
They're worried because you're lying on their platform and helping radicalize an already pretty radical Trump base. That's why.
But we'll get past that as well. We're going to have to get past a lot of stupidity in this particular post. We also disallow... no, we went press... blah, blah, blah. However, in some cases, this has meant allowing controversial views on the outcome or process of counting votes of a current election as election officials have worked to finalize counts. Again, stopping you right there, there is a current SCOTUS case involved with not election fraud, but the constitutionality of mail-in votes. I would think that that's significant, but apparently YouTube...
I believe he's referencing the Texas lawsuit, but SCOTUS hasn't actually taken that up yet. I don't think they're going to either. Like, they could, I guess, but it's already on the docket, but what I mean by that is they haven't decided they're going to take it yet. It means in the next, like, week or so, they're going to decide whether to take the case or not. And based on the Pennsylvania case that they decided, like, unanimously, hey, no, we're not going to hear this is bullshit. I'm assuming something similar will happen with this Texas lawsuit, but who knows?
Who disagrees. Again, billionaires interfering arguably with an election when you have an ongoing SCOTUS case.
Roxer's Boxer, thank you for following.
The Supreme Court of the United States is currently deciding the election in that fact.
No, they're not. Again, Styx is acting like this is already, like... It's like he thinks there's already verbal arguments going on. No, that's not what's happening, Styx. The election has already been certified. They're going to go and meet on the 14th, the Electoral College, and it's all going to happen. I can't believe that even after all this time, he's still in such hard denial. It is bonkers.
There are a significant number of states currently signed on to a lawsuit initially enjoined by Texas 2 days ago in order to non-certify the results of other states.
Which is incredibly stupid and not going to go anywhere, because the elections are run by the individual states. Texas, in that lawsuit, for those of you who aren't familiar, is basically saying, well, it's not fair that Pennsylvania had mail-in ballots and let people go and vote that way so easily, because that's not equitable to the way we run our elections, which are, you know, harder to vote in, so we need to throw out all these mail-in votes. It's very, very stupid. It's an incredibly stupid lawsuit, which even if it went through would probably be terrible for Republicans, because setting the precedent that one state can sue another state over how their elections are run would mean that Democratic states with a bunch of money, like California, could start suing red states for their voter suppression techniques, which would be bad for Republicans. So I'm not even sure why they would be short-sighted enough to try and get that through, but, you know, they're gonna do what they're gonna do, I guess. Skooma Addict, thank you for subscribing with a 2-month streak.
While it is unlikely that this actually happens, this is not settled law. And for YouTube to pretend that it's settled law is deeply disrespectful to the community that talks about politics. It is deeply and terrifyingly dangerous to allow multi-billionaires to
Mitchell
influence
Drummer,
political
new stream
speech
boss,
in this manner.
nice.
Sadly, there are lemmings out there that will actually support it. Well, thank goodness that they're shutting down these evil conspiracy theorists. You are goddamn so brainwashed, I don't even know what to say anymore. You're certainly not liberals.
I'm not a liberal. I'm a leftist, so thanks, Styx. Appreciate it.
Maybe might be leftists.
Yeah, you got it. Hey.
Hell, some of you are probably rhinocons. 100% of you are stupid, though. Yesterday was the...
Biting commentary. You're not gonna let me say baseless conspiracy theories on the internet. Well, guess what? You're stupid.
Safe harbor deadline for the U.S. presidential election, and enough states have certified their election results to determine a president-elect. Given that, we will start removing any piece of content uploaded today or any time after.
Dr. Gamble with 20 bits says the man who believes in the Necronomicon. He does believe in magic, doesn't he? Tucker White 94 20 bits BT dubs. It should be noted that Texas, the state running the farcical lawsuit, also has certified its election results. So that tells me it'll go before the court and say that's not actually any fraud, right? I don't even understand what their thought is with that one.
That misleads people.
Apparently the AG that, this is entirely speculation. The AG in Texas that started this lawsuit is apparently under investigation for some felony shit. So some people have speculated that he's trying to fish for a pardon from Trump. Again, that's just speculation.
Misleads people. By alleging that widespread fraud or errors changed the outcome of the 2020 U.S. presidential election, in line with our approach towards historical U.S. presidential elections. Has YouTube banned a single user or removed a single video alleging that any prior election was problematic? If I question Bush v. Gore, 2000, the Florida election, the Supreme Court weighed in. They determined that George W. Bush won the state, giving him the election. We found out months later that Gore won the state in the popular vote and technically speaking should have been president. If I question this, if I make a video saying Bush v. Gore was a bullshit fest, the Florida Supreme Court were cunts, they were full of fucking shit, is YouTube gonna ban me?
I doubt it, because you're literally commenting accurately on a historical event, right? You're not denying that George W. Bush actually won the election in the sense that he became president. What you're doing is commenting on the actual process that took place and disagreeing with it, right? But what people like you have been doing is spreading baseless conspiracy theories of election fraud with no evidence. That's the difference. Do you understand the difference? One of them is you accurately assessing or at least discussing and commenting on things that happened, whereas with this, you aren't. You're making up controversy for clicks, for clout, and because you don't like the fact that Donald Trump lost. That would be the difference.
Of course not.
Tugger White 94, that's good whataboutism. It sure is.
Why? Because they like Beijing Biden. That's why. They like Beijing Biden. They like his globalistic policies because they're a multinational corporation with many, many hundreds of billions of dollars in assets. And that's really why. Not YouTube, but Google is the parent company.
Oh, I just say you because I like to... I guess that I haven't thought about it. I just talk to the video like they're here. No, Styx is not in chat. That's just how I talk.
And Alphabet is theirs. YouTube, no, most people don't even know they're a third-tier subsidiary of Google and or Alphabet.
I'm pretty sure most people know YouTube is owned by Google. It's been owned by Google since like 2006 or 2007, I think. Colossus TV with 20 bits. This is like when someone susses me for being an imposter in the last game. Yeah, I may have done it, but the last game isn't this game.
That's the funny part. They're not going to do any jack shit unless it's this particular election. They won't. If I say that Putin didn't win the last election, people actually hate his fucking guts. And he lost against, whatever opponent he had to assassinate this time. YouTube's not going to ban me. If I say, hey...
Yeah, you're literally listing scenarios that are nothing like the U.S. election, and then asking why it doesn't apply to the U.S. election. Because they're completely different things. That's why.
Hey, the Rwandan election might have been flawed. The Libyan election was bullshit. The UK election was false. Nobody's gonna do jack shit, only for this particular one. Now, isn't that very, very interesting, everybody? Billionaires, again, telling you what you can and cannot talk about and think. By the way, just as an aside, why can't I just fucking talk about it on another platform?
You can. I'm sure you will on BitChute. Go do that. As long as people don't have to fucking listen to your bullshit, it's fine.
Cares? At this point, it's almost like, who cares about YouTube? Then, as far as I know, I looked into the TOS. That doesn't appear to have changed. This is just a blog post. They're going to remove videos outside of their own TOS at this point. So,
I'm pretty sure within YouTube's TOS, they have a stipulation, as all companies basically do at this point, that says, we can terminate your account or do anything to your channel for literally any reason. So if they make a blog post saying this is a new policy, that's the policy. That's how it works.
Basically, good luck. Fucking kiss your ass goodbye. They're just gonna purge everyone that they don't like. It's horseshit. Yeah, we'll go through this. Yeah. For example, we will remove videos claiming that a presidential candidate won the election due to widespread software glitches. Why? Who cares?
People who care about the truth and not spreading lies care. Again, you're making baseless, slanderous claims about multiple companies involved in these voting machines, which I think the company that owns the Dominion voting systems that all these people have such a hate boner for, they're already suing Sidney Powell, I guess, because they've been getting, like, threats and stuff because of her bullshit nonsense. Not only that, but you're basically accusing the entire DNC, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, everyone involved in that, in felonies? You can't just go around claiming people have broken laws like this and think it's just in free speech, right? We have slander laws specifically for these reasons.
or counting errors. Again, why? We will begin enforcing this policy today, and we will ramp it out in the weeks to come. Now, another thing, I didn't see this blog post. Somehow I didn't get the email. So were you just not going to tell people in hopes that they'd keep making those videos so that you'd have a reason to ban them?
That's pretty conspiratorial. Just because you don't get every little newsletter that YouTube doesn't mean that they're intentionally targeting you. And out of all the people to target, it wouldn't be you, Styx. Dave Rubin already got this email too. Dave Rubin talked about getting an email from YouTube. He probably got an email specifically because he's bigger. I don't even know if YouTube knows you exist. Like, you have 400-something thousand subscribers. It's not nothing, don't get me wrong. But Styx isn't big enough that I think YouTube takes particular note of him. I don't know if he would have been on the email list for something like this. Probably people who have like 1 million subscribers or up. People like Dave Rubin, people like Tim Pool. They probably got specific emails. Below that threshold, though, no. They're just going to apply the policy.
I think so, but people following Jack Posobiec or who haven't...
I wonder if this video falls into this, because this is a new video where he's basically saying he thinks the election is fraudulent, but I'm not saying it is. I'm just curious how YouTube would rule on this.
Enough subscribers to actually tip them off like I do. We're safe. What about all the smaller users? They might accidentally upload a video where they non-satirically chastise the election.
Sure. Just like any other thing. If you're like a small-time YouTuber and you make like a video claiming that, I don't know, the Holocaust didn't happen or some other nonsense conspiracy theory, even if you don't know the policy, yeah, they'll remove you. That's how YouTube works. Like, what? Are you claiming that because someone might be ignorant of a policy that policy shouldn't apply to them? That's not how anything works. Tucker White 94, well, Styx has sold me. I should get to say whatever I want and suffer no punishment for it. I'll say it right now. Hey, did you know Hannah once stole gold from Fort Knox and killed the Martians that guard the vault? That's true. I actually killed them with the gold. It's like their kryptonite, which is weird why they had them guarding it.
By the way, what if I make a video saying, hey, there sure weren't no election fraud. I sure am happy about them election results.
Again, you're describing, it would be a weird video, but, like, you're describing someone just talking about the election in a way that isn't slanderous, that isn't a lie, right? It's weird to be like, boy, I sure do, like, whatever bullshit straw man you're constructing, but yeah, you're allowed to talk about the election accurately.
Yep, Joe Biden done won in a fair and square match. There weren't no 6,000 votes changed in a Michigan voting machine up in Wayne County. What if I make a video like that that's clearly sarcastic? Am I still going to get banned? I guess time will tell. By the way, if YouTube...
That's how most policies get applied. Again, I don't remember if it was in this segment or an earlier segment today, but I said there was a court case. I think it was a Supreme Court case. I don't remember which justice said it, but something along the lines of, I don't know how to define porn, but I know it when I see it. I imagine it'll be up to whoever is in charge of that stuff for YouTube to make those determinations.
Wants to silence me, they're going to have to ban me. Fuck you. I'm not going to be silent. Fuck yourself. Yeah, people should definitely be following me. Again, link in the description on one of those other 4 sites because they actually give a shit about free speech. It's pretty sad when a French site named Dailymotion has more respect for free speech among US users than YouTube does, which is actually based in California. By the way,
Dailymotion is pretty lax in general. Like, I'll put it this way. If I want to find a TV show that's obscure and old, that is still under copyright, but, like, maybe I want to find it. I'll give you an example. Freddy's Nightmares, which was a TV show in the 80s that I can't find a copy of. I don't know if they ever actually ended up selling that on DVD or what. Hold on. Freddy's Nightmares. So Freddy's Nightmares was a TV show in the 80s. It was an anthology horror TV show, sort of similar to Tales from the Crypt, but the host was Robert Englund reprising his role as Freddy Krueger. So every episode would start with Freddy given a little thing, sort of like the Crypt Keeper and Tales from the Crypt, and it would end with the same thing. Some of the episodes were straight-up Freddy Krueger episodes, so if you're a fan of Nightmare on Elm Street and you want to see some more Nightmare on Elm Street content that you didn't know existed, check it out. Anyway, I haven't been able to find this. Oh, maybe it is on Amazon now. Cool. Maybe I'll have to pick it up at some point. Anyway, For a while, it wasn't available on home media, at least not to me. It was just all posted on Dailymotion. Dailymotion is pretty lax with copyright and all sorts of policies. It doesn't necessarily make Dailymotion in the right. Okay? That's my tangent about Freddy's nightmares, because when am I gonna get to talk about that?
Do realize that something like, 46% of the U.S. public believes that the election was rigged? You do realize that that's about half of your U.S. YouTube user base. Now, if you don't want to be the main U.S. video site, you can just tell us.
YouTube's not going to be unseated as the #1 video site for a while. I'm not saying it'll never happen. Every big company eventually gets usurped in some way, shape, or form. But currently, with the things the way they are, with laws the way they are, I don't think that's happening. Because YouTube doesn't even really make money. They barely break even, as far as I understand, because it costs an astronomical amount of money to host the number of videos that are uploaded to YouTube. Harry K5 with 20 bits copyright as it is used now kind of sucks in general. Hey, I'd agree with you, but the law is what it is right now, and that's what we're talking about. Tucker White 94 20 bits. Alright, Styx has strained credulity for me. Nobody uses Dailymotion with its garbage video player. True.
You want to rest on your laurels, retract yourself into history, and somebody else can take control. Now, Rumble, BitChute, whatever.
BitChute is not going to get more popular than YouTube. It'll probably keep going for quite a while. I'm not saying it's going to disappear tomorrow, but, like, it's not going to be as popular as YouTube. Because if you've ever looked at BitChute, and I feel like it's dangerous of me to go on the BitChute homepage, here on Twitch, but it's full of conspiracy theories and literal Nazis. And I don't mean Nazi, like, oh, they're, I just think they're fashy. I mean literal Holocaust-denying Nazis. We looked at he called himself, what did he call himself? It was Comrade something, I think, which is weird because I typically associate that with communism. But he was literally in front of, like, a Nazi flag. Commandant, that's what it was. It wasn't Comrade. You're right. It was Commandant. Literal Nazi in a Nazi uniform espousing Nazi ideology. So, like, that kind of thing exists on BitChute, and I don't think it's going to get popular specifically because that's a huge part of the content, is ridiculous conspiracies and outright Nazis.
You can do that if you want to, but it'd be nice if you'd be honest with us. This is basically a giant fuck you to the entire user base that talks about politics. Almost half of the entire political user base disagrees with the election results.
Okay, but disagreeing with facts, we have a word for that. It's called being wrong. It's called being wrong, and when you're wrong, that's usually okay. But when it comes to something like, again, I'll give an example, Holocaust denial, 9/11 trutherism, anti-vax, these things become dangerous. And once they're like black and white issues like that we know, it's in the company's best interest to stop that bullshit. If anything, they're a little late on this one. You guys should... I had so much more faith in the right than I had any right to, because I thought, oh, this denial of Joe Biden winning the election, it'll last like a week and then they'll move on. But here we are, it's been over a month, and they keep on going. I just cannot believe how much more faith I had in them than is reciprocated by their actions. Like, they're so delusional.
You don't have to allege fraud to say, hey, there were irregularities. That's just the case.
Do you have, again, there isn't evidence of that, Styx, which we've found, which is why all the court cases have been thrown out. What don't you understand?
Case. How stringent, by the way, are these rules going to be? They don't even mention that. As always, news coverage and commentary on these issues can remain on our site if there is sufficient education, documentary, scientific, or artistic content. Oh, educational content. So you mean CNN and NPR and stuff. You're allowed to talk about.
Not necessarily. Like, for instance, I would argue I fall under that. Like, I'm talking about you talking about this, but I'm not advocating for it, right? I'm telling you why you're wrong. For instance, you can make a YouTube video talking about what QAnon believers believe. But if you advocate for said beliefs in such a way that it targets individuals, then it gets removed, right? Educational content is fine. Pushing certain narratives that are unfounded and slanderous by their very nature, not considered okay.
About it. Just make sure that the person that's presenting the issue is a complete dunderhead and is getting completely talked down by the MSM talking head. Just as long as it's Fox or CNN or something. Connecting people to authoritative information. While only a small portion of watch time is election-related content, as a YouTube creator that covered it extensively, I would maybe beg to differ. YouTube continues to be an important source of election news. On average, 88% of the videos in the top 10 search results related to elections came from authoritative news sources. Among the rest are things like Newsy Late.
Would I debate Styx given the chance? No, I don't like doing debates. It's not for me. I'll have discussions with people, like if Nathan Thompson ever wanted to come on and talk about his flat earth stuff, but obviously I'm going to try and refute what he's saying. But, like, I find conversations interesting, but a debate formalized, I don't typically like. I also get really mad, and I act like an asshole, so it's not a good idea for me to do debates.
Night shows, creator videos, and commentary. So you're saying that almost 90% of all election-related view time went to Salon and Vox and CNN and Fox News and MSNBC and NBC and all of these other, and the Young Turks. I remember Cenk was palling around with the CEO of YouTube. So in other words, you've decided to basically screw your entire creative user base.
Again, not really. My channel's been thriving, and I'm a very small channel that does political commentary or whatever you want to call it. So maybe people just don't like you, Styx. Have you considered that? Maybe you've reached peak saturation for weird occultist Nazis.
Can you imagine how damaging this could be to the site? Again, I don't tell this to YouTube because I hate YouTube. I tell this to YouTube because I hate the management that's managing it into the goddamn ground. You're making mistakes, you're doing stupid things, and you're pissing off enormous swaths of your user base because you misinterpret your own statistics and rely too much on bots. You rely too much on the idea that YouTube is major and hegemonic and huge and is basically a monopoly along with other tech firms, and therefore it can never be knocked off its pedestal. I am telling you, as someone who's been on the internet since day one, because it was 1997 when it went public and I was already almost 10 years fucking old, I can tell you, it's happened many, many times before. When's the last time you used Dogpile? When's the last time you used Yahoo, unless it was Yahoo News? In coordination, by the way, on polling, I believe with YouGov, if I remember correctly. Not actually a bad polling firm. When's the last time you logged into your MySpace account? When's the last time that you dig on something, on a post that you saw on the internet?
Those are all websites. How do I put this? The bar for entry is a lot lower, but even so, today it's difficult to do that sort of thing. For instance, let me give you an example. Dig died and was replaced by Reddit in terms of, like, the closest, analog. So Dig went away and Reddit took its place. Something similar tried to happen at one point, some years later, where people were disagreeing with some of Reddit's decisions, so they tried to go to Voat, or it might have been pronounced Vote, but it was spelled like Voat. That failed, specifically because they could not keep up with the server costs, right? So we're in a situation where places like YouTube or even something like Reddit, there's so much traffic that is wanting to go to these places that it's nearly impossible to pay for the server space for all this stuff to run these websites for the traffic you're talking about. I would argue BitChute's only worked so far because so few people are on it. If you go to BitChute and looked at their top rated videos, their top viewed videos in the last month or two or whatever, they're very low views relative to something like YouTube, right? A popular video on BitChute might get 10 to 50 to 100 at most thousand views. That's terrible. I've had videos on Hannah and Jake that get that many views. It's been a long time, but my point is, like, it's not that many people relative to something like YouTube. So, I don't know. I think if BitChute tried to be YouTube and was as big, they'd immediately fail because even with that many users, they wouldn't be able to sustain themselves and their servers. And then there was a thing. Harry K5 with 20 bits. Nazis in the occult is nothing new. I pretty much expected for Styx to be interested in that. Yeah.
Well, and the most viewed channels and videos are from news channels like NBC and CBS. Yeah, that makes me happy. YouTube is literally promoting my competitors. Who else am I competing with?
Styx thinks he's competing with NBC and CBS? Oh, no. Styx, I hate to break it to you, but you're not. You're not. Nor am I. Like, what are you talking about?
I'm not competing with other independent commentators. And, yeah, there's a bunch more bullshit. Never mind. But yeah, there's the blog post. Link in the description, of course, archived. Yeah, you should join me elsewhere. YouTube has really fucked itself this time. And I'm already seeing fallout. It hasn't been that long since I made the post. When something like this happens, the only thing I think that would be on the same order was the first adpocalypse. Honestly, I think PewDiePie got involved with that one, so keeping that in mind, YouTube has decided to insult its entire user base, and essentially there are people out there crazy enough to think that multi-billionaires working for multinational firms worth hundreds of billions of dollars should be suppressing political commentary.
Again, it's not political commentary. It's outright lies and slander about an election that we know the results of.
They think that's a good idea, and they don't even realize this is a direct and explicit and purposeful antagonism of Congress to try to get 230 removed. I tell you this, I guarantee you this is YouTube's shot across the bow to try to force Congress to get rid of Section 230 so that all of their smaller U.S. competitors immediately go by the wayside.
There's nothing funny about
That's
the
so
tools of
stupid.
capitalism.
If 230 got removed, Styx would be gone from YouTube like that. Because they would then be, for those who don't know, this Section 230 that gets discussed, and Trump has talked about this too, is basically the provision in U.S. law that says you are not largely liable for the things that are posted on your website, right? So someone could try and sue Styx maybe for certain things he's done, but it would be much more difficult to sue YouTube for hosting Styx. Right? Not impossible, but it would be much more difficult. So what happens if you remove 230 is the liability can entirely fall on a big company like YouTube, and if you're going to sue someone over content Styx or anyone else on YouTube makes, you're not going to sue Styx because he doesn't have enough money to pay you a settlement. YouTube does. So then YouTube, having that liability, is going to start removing every single, even tiny controversial person, because they will then be seen as a liability to their bottom line, because they would be. Styx begging for 230 to be removed is like, it's like a pig begging for a butcher. It's a terrible idea. And I don't know why right-wingers are pushing for this shit. Trump in particular, because if 230 got removed, Trump is gone from all social media immediately, because again, everyone would be suing Twitter for ridiculous, slanderous shit Trump has said. No one wants 230 to be removed who isn't also an idiot. Tucker White 94 20 bit Styx. YouTube's been a dumpster fire for years. Nothing's changed, nothing has killed it, and this won't either. I agree. We would probably have to see a pretty big change in technology and like making the cost of entering this field and storing videos. It'd have to be a lot cheaper for another company to come and do it successfully.
They are afraid. They're doing this because they're afraid. Their user base has begun to gravitate towards other sites that are actually picking up steam.
Colossus TV. Styx is further from competing with those news outlets than a runner in the ready position is winning a race.
And they want that money. The political establishment is afraid. They're seeing sites that they co-opt that are donating millions of dollars every year into their campaign cycles. They're seeing them slowly lose market share against foreign firms and against US-based alt-tech firms. And that's why they're doing this. It's all about the Benjamins. That's all it's ever been about. These people don't have any principles, they don't care about free speech, and the idea that US-based firms that declare themselves platforms for legal protection would be explicitly editorializing political content that is legal and in many cases meant to be benevolent is deeply disturbing.
If you commit slander and you claim it's benevolent, it doesn't make it not slander.
If you're not disturbed by this, you are a lemming. You are a coward and a fool. And if you're not speaking out against it, then God bless you for being ignorant. That's about all. Peace out.
The intensity that he goes from right before he stops his videos is always interesting to me. It's always like he crescendos, and then he immediately drops it. It's like he climaxes, and then he's immediately like, okay, stop touching me. You know what I mean? Tucker White 94. Styx. YouTube's not losing market share. The most viewed I could find on BitChute had 4,000 views. That's minuscule by YouTube standards. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so that's Styx. It'll be interesting to see what he shifts his content to in the coming weeks, considering so much of his content over the past month has been about his claims of election fraud. Baseless claims of election fraud. So we'll keep an eye. We'll keep an eye on him.